Wow, it's almost like I knew what I was doing.
Those look amazing. Those are brilliant.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. Hello, everyone. I started this one a little different. I just popped everyone in. I want to introduce everybody. Louise, and
Hello.
yeah, she's from, you can tell by the accent. Um, she has, oh, I had to contact her. It's a few years ago. She had read the book and left some nice comments. Was it Goodreads or where else did you do it? I can't remember.
It
Um,
was Goodreads, yeah.
so I was deeply flattered and invited her to share her thoughts because I know she's going to say good things, or at least I hope so. Mike is a more recent convert to my writing. Everyone knows Mexican Iron Man. He is the hero of the common man, and I mean that in every sense of the word. We know what he does behind the scenes. We know some of the things that he doesn't tell people. He is a wonderful man, and like I said, he's new to the universe, so I had to invite him. Everyone knows Purple. She has her own channel, does wonderful things. I have consulted with her many times about different things I should do with formatting the books, her opinions on things, and been valuable. And then I got some guy at this truck stop. I had to pull him over. And say, you know what? I got another spot here. Um, I think you can fit. Come on in. So
Come on, Fat Man, get in here. We got some room.
he's become a friend of mine. It was strange when we first started contacting. He caught my channel and started asking questions. And he said, "Yeah, I lived here and I had done this." And I go, "Wait, I know exactly who you are. I know exactly why you like my book." And so we've become friends ever since.
Yeah.
Um, Real friends. I know it was surprising to him, but I do trust him like a friend. So, hello, everybody. Welcome. This is the third uh, of my shows today. I am not sure if I'm going to do another one tonight. It depends if people contact me or not. I got to watch the chat below because I missed someone or it didn't pop up last time. For some reason, I had a guest who was supposed to come on, and I feel horrible that he wasn't able to make it. I really do, but I didn't see him. I honestly didn't see him. So this stream is going to be a little bit different in two ways. We have a couple people here that have gone through the Blood Witch, which is the one that started really getting me into dealing with publishers and the trouble that I had with that because of political agendas, uh, COVID, different things that kind of put one out of business, the other one lost in a bidding war. So I am going to switch so I could start seeing chat. Now, I told everyone here that this is going to be a little bit structured, but maybe just a little bit. First off, let's start off.
Structure. I don't remember that being a part of the.
That's not part of the deal. I want my $50 not back in my. So let's start off with evolution. For some reason, Kendall has had difficulty getting the Blood Witch up and running. I don't know if it has to do with the font matching, because I know when they did Evolution, the one that you could purchase hardback, uh, they changed it a little bit. And I think it's just for printing purposes. So I don't know if that's what the problem is, and they're trying to figure out how to do that. I've been trying to contact them. We'll see. It'll come out. I'm not worried about it. It's just a matter of time. So let's go around. I want to talk about evolution first. Any takers on telling me initial thoughts on the
I'll go
book?
first.
Thank you.
So I'm always one to volunteer. I'm always one to volunteer first on live streams. Um, what I found profoundly interesting is your writing style. Uh, I read a lot. I try to read at least one or two books a month. Maybe that may not be a lot for some folks, but I really try 30 minutes to an hour and a half a day. I try to read something from someone somewhere. I found that your writing style is incredibly engaging, and what it does is it brings you into the story. It's very easy when I read your work for me to visualize what I'm reading as if I'm watching a movie. And a lot of times with a lot of authors, you find yourself trying to force yourself, or really having to try to understand what the author is trying to picture for you in terms of the universe they're trying to build, or the world they're trying to build, or the characters. I mean, right off the bat, in the first chapter, you're able to get a sense of the personality of the people that you. I mean, good to go out. Even the time you spent explaining the roommate in the beginning, it's almost like you could feel yourself walking by him as that guy's getting ready to go to work. And we've all had roommates, and that just continues through the book as you get deeper and deeper into it. That same writing style persists, where I really found myself not wondering what I'm supposed to experience or visualize, but I found myself in that experience, visualizing it as if I were there. And it's really curious to me because a lot of the prose that you use, you will set up in one sentence, you might set up what's happening, how it's happening, and the feeling of the people that it's happening. And that I'm wondering how many times you must have had to rewrite, or do you naturally write that way? I don't know, but I think it's a gift because I read a lot aside, and I've read a lot of sci-fi, and I think that your writing style in particular is makes it very, very easy to engage with a brand new IP, which is that's what this is. This is, while you might have been inspired or motivated by different things of the past, this is a completely new IP. It's a completely new universe. It's a completely new world. And the readers, once they get into it, what I want to make sure that they understand is that, as opposed to a lot of sci-fi readers, this one is an easy read, and it's a very visually appealing read. And I think that's amazing.
Thank you. It actually does come easy to me in one regard. In the other regard, I kind of have to work with it. And this is why I have my YouTube channel, so I can hear things. Is I always try my best not to repeat words. So I have to change phrasing and different things so that it doesn't sound like I'm repeating. The other thing is, and I mentioned this in the morning show, when I write, I spent years as a chiropractor. And you guys can correct me if I'm wrong, but hopefully you pick this up. I try and hit all three phases of the way people learn. Some people, they use their hands. You can tell I'm partially a visual learner, see things. The other is hearing. And a lot of people, it's for emotion. Those are the three different ways. So in a paragraph, or sometimes even a sentence, I try and hit words that will attract whichever learner you are. So that's about all that I do when it comes to playing games with words. So thank you. Purple. Evolution.
Yeah. Evolution, yes, the one that started it all for me. Absolutely, my much beloved copy that I keep up on the shelf and can't wait to get the hardback of. Yeah, as Mexican Iron Man was saying, it's the voice that you give your characters, I think, that really draws people in. At no point when reading these books are you confused about the motivations or what these characters want, what they're feeling, because you give them such character. I love the progression that they have as well. They're not stagnant, they're not dull, and they're not infallible. These are characters that can make mistakes, can make terrible mistakes, but you still root for them, and I love that with your work.
I appreciate that. Hold your train there, speaker. I see your voice moving, or some making noise over there. I want to go to ladies first. I'm trying to be funny. Forgive me.
Wait a minute. What do you mean, ladies first? I went first.
Well, you insisted.
You're a girly man, I think is what he's trying to say.
Yeah, Luis, you're the one who did that wonderful thing, and I've quoted it from Goodreads. How did you find about it, and what you think about it?
I found out about it because through Orville Nation, because you were on there and he kept nagging you to promote your book a little bit more. So I picked it up, and I was absolutely captivated by it. And I think for me, it was the fact that you surprised me, because I've read a lot of sci-fi, I've watched a lot of sci-fi, and a lot of the times you can assess the situation. You might not know everywhere it's going, but you read it and you think, okay, this is the story. And you did that, and then you changed it. Oh, okay, it's different. And then we got a bit further, and you changed it again. And I loved that, but more than that, every time you did that, the world got bigger. And we saw a little bit more of the galaxy and a little bit more of the wider story. So it was a constant surprise, and I love that. For someone who has been watching these things for years, to have something that was really new and captivating was just great, especially in an era when we're not getting any really new and captivating sci-fi. So I loved it.
I deeply appreciate that. I told them not to lie, but I'm gonna have $20 for that one. All right, you can unmute yourself, speaker. Would you please? If you know, I don't know how much you got. I know you did the Blood Witch. I don't know how much you got into evolution. If you have any thoughts, if you don't, we'll come back to you.
Yeah, no, I've read it. I got a copy on the paperback side. So I agree with Mexican Iron Man. You paint vivid pictures with words. It's really well done. It's just I've read novels. I don't the movie Willow. That was out a few years ago. There was a series of books that were written afterwards that carried that story on with George Lucas and I can't remember the other guy that Shadow wrote it with him, but they were great books. But like he would take chapter or like pages where he would like describe what the sky looked like and the plants, and it was so over the top that it was like obnoxious. I found myself just skipping through pages of unnecessary wordy dialogue describe and like and you assume more intelligence, I think, on the on the part of your reader, that you don't need to do that, that they'll fill in the blanks, that you'll paint the picture and that they get it. But see, I remember when I first found you, you were doing Children of the Directive, which was just, I mean, it just sucked me in. It was awesome. And it made me want to read everything, you've ever done. And I'd go on your YouTube channel and listen because I was a driver. I would go on and listen to them just like an audiobook. And you did a fantastic job with the reading. I hope you do audiobooks at some point in time, because they definitely deserve that treatment. But yeah, just fantastic characters. The way you describe the ships, the different, I mean, it's really, really well done. It's a master class in how you start something fantastic.
Thank you very much. You said the ships and stuff. Everyone has mentioned, and I didn't even think it was a big deal when I wrote it. I was just having fun. The technology. Mike, you mentioned something earlier. Any hot points about it that you wanted to bring up?
There's two. I have two. I'm sorry, excuse me, I'm coughing. There's two elements that in this live stream I want to talk about. I want to talk about the ship. Well, I mean, there's lots we can talk about, but I do want to talk about the ships, and I want to talk about the AI. I'll start with the ships for now. It's funny that Speaker for the Dead is mentioning the ships in his examples, because if you'll recall, Adega, a couple months ago when you gifted me an e-copy for me and my kid so I could share it with him when I was going to go visit him, the first reaction I came back that we had was the ships. And I wanted to ask you, you told me, I asked you then, and you said, well, we'll talk about it later. I am a big fan of all of the sci-fi ships that have come and gone. And one of the things that's been very disappointing in the last few years on TV, with some of the stuff that's been put out on some of the streaming networks, to be unnamed, is the repetitive, duplicative nature and the lack of creativity. Whereas I told you that one of the things I'm looking forward to do with Max this summer is we're going to put together Lego copies of your ships as best we can. And I found it. I really think that adds a lot to the story. I really think it does. You might. When you read other sci-fi, it's very much neglected, and you didn't. You gave as much attention to. I mean, even like when it was launching the first time, you gave as much attention to detail of the experience as most authors do when they're describing, say, running through a meadow or whatnot. And that's really neglected in other sci-fi writers. they focus too much on the story and the aliens or the interaction of whatever their experiences in space, and you didn't. The vessel and the vessels in human history have mattered most to the human experience. They mattered, of course, by sea. Vessels have mattered by land. Vessels have mattered to get us to the moon. Vessels have mattered in our creativity when we saw Star Trek. The Enterprise, and in this case, the vessel is described like a character in terms of the treatment that the author, are giving it. And
Yes.
so I thought that was fantastic. And I think, although your reaction when I brought it up a couple months ago seemed like real, I could tell, like, when we were talking, you were like, really, that's the first thing you're going to come out of. And that was my first reaction, because, and I think it's not because I'm trying to be comedic about it. It's because you give it the proper treatment it deserves. And because, frankly, if you don't, then nothing else really makes sense, in my opinion. It doesn't really make sense. Nothing else makes sense. And so I can't wait to actually get out some Legos. We've got a ton of parts, and me and my kids, it's one of the first things we're going to do when I see him. He's out of school, and we're going to build a couple of these ships, and I'm excited about it. So that's one things I want to talk about related to technology.
I agree. Yeah, that whole, like, just the way that Captain Kirk describes the Enterprise in the episode where he basically, she becomes a character in the show, in the original in the original series, how he says, I'll never lose you. And she basically, the Enterprise becomes his mate, his mistress, whatever, and it's a huge character in the show. And you do that very well, like I say, and the technology, the way you describe it, it's very believable. You feel like this is something that could happen. It's the same experience I got when I was listening to The Expanse.
Yep.
That you feel like you could actually reach out and touch the technology you're talking about, because you're kind of basing it on real scientific principles that we, as we understand it today. And it really adds something amazing.
Thank you. With the technology and stuff, I tried to make something, and I mentioned this earlier, that most of the shows that we have, The Expanse is a couple hundred years, Star Trek's a couple hundred years, Babylon 5's a couple hundred years in the future. And we all see the futuristic impressions that they have there, but this is set 1,000 years from now.
Mm-hmm.
And if we were to have replicators replicating food, where you go to a terminal and things develop, 800 years later, would it still look the same? No, it wouldn't, which is why people could wear them on their wrist.
Mm-hmm.
And do different things with the ships. And when the second book comes out, you guys will, Purple can attest to this.
Mm-hmm.
I put a lot more into it because let's just say it's a more action-oriented book. And one of the things I really don't like about sci-fi, as much as a kid, I liked the Starship Yamato and these different things where they had these big cannons in space. You're shooting light. Why in the world do you need a cannon to shoot various different forms of energy? So mine are, just to give you an idea what's ahead, think of a globe, a half semicircle that is magnetically bound to a ship. And when any emergency comes, that can rotate anywhere because it's held on a magnetic field. And then instead of having cannons, it has a projector, and the various different types of weapons could be faced anywhere, anytime. That's how I picture things 1,000 years in the future. And that's what's coming up. There is Big's 2 special weapons, one of which you see in the first book. But the other one you don't really get to see until later. The Directive ships are quite unique. So I'm glad you appreciate that, because it wasn't something that I really focused a lot on as trying to impress to somebody as much as it was I was trying to impress myself. But thank you. Any other thoughts, Purple or Luis, on technology? Did that hit you? I wanted to see what your perspectives were on it. Either one.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, and you talk about the use of technology in the ships, and the ships, especially big in later books, become a character in itself, which I absolutely loved. I thought that was a brilliant direction to go. Not going into spoilers, obviously, but it is believable. It's not a so outlandish technology that people don't understand how it works. And you talking about using the use of magnets, so these weapons can go anywhere on the ship and protect any in any direction. It just makes sense.
Yes, definitely. I agree. I love anything with AI and seeing the way that gets taken. It felt original. But it felt, as you said, believable. Like only a few steps away from where we are. Something that we could achieve.
Thank you. And you mentioned AI because someone else brought it up, and I wanted to see if you agree with it. It was earlier where um, the Stellar Union, which is where our main characters come from, AI was basically outlawed because of. Did I get booted for a second?
Yes.
Okay. Well, if that happens again, uh, please take over. You guys are more than
Okay. I'll
enough.
take over.
Okay. I appreciate. I know you have no qualms of doing that. But earlier there was mention of AI and the Stellar Union, the group where everyone comes from, is they outlawed it because of difficulties with it in the past. But I use it in this book, and then you'll see it expand a great deal to where it can be basically a tool that goes either way. There are good uses, there are bad uses, and of course, everyone mentions Big and how much they love Big. Um, but uh, I won't spoil it too much. Last hour, if you guys want spoilers, you go to the previous stream. There's plenty of spoilers in there. But he definitely is a type of machine that becomes very human-like and childlike, and I enjoyed. I love the combination. They were meant to be a thing of war, and yet they became a thing of peace more than anything else. Okay,
If we're going to leave the technology topic, are we going to leave it? Because I want to mention the Edric DT. I had a thought about that.
please
Real
go
quick.
ahead.
Okay, so one of the things that I found the whole, I don't know how I can talk about this without spoiling some of it, but let's just say that there's a relationship between there's an interaction which turns into a very weird or interesting relationship with DT and Ed. Okay, and what I think is what I found it profoundly affecting me because where we're at now, there's a lot of talk about possible, putting chips in our brains, and certainly I found myself staring at my Apple iWatch because I read this book originally 2 months ago. I reread it this weekend, knowing that we are going to do the show, and I'm sitting there as I'm going through the book again, and I didn't do this the first time, but the second time I did, I found myself starting to look at my watch. I'm starting to think that how far removed in this? Maybe we're not 1,000 years removed from a lot of this. Maybe it's a lot. Maybe it's a lot sooner than we think. And certainly, I was profoundly affected by the scene where there's a, let's just call it a data dump, if you will, and that's what leads us to DT and the whole. And I was just thinking, what if that happens in the modern? I mean, what if that happened? What if that happened to me? How weird would that be? Uh, how? What are the implications of this? I don't think we're that far away, maybe. And it's I don't know. I just think that there's a lot of implications and points for discussion because in the book, as you're reading through this, outlawed or not, it is part of the existence of the universe. There's no question that AI is something that exists. It's something that's there, and it's there from the beginning of the book. It runs all the way through, and we're going to have to cross this. What once was science fiction and books that we may have read from the 50s, 60s, or 70s, your book brings out very clearly that we could be there already, and we might as well start thinking of the implications of when it's already been introduced into humanity.
I appreciate that.
Did you mean that? Did you mean to do that intentionally to make us really think about the implications, or was it
Oh,
really
yeah.
more of a storytelling device? Because I
No,
found it,
no.
I found it to be not just a storytelling device that you use, but I found it at every turn in the book, it made me think of the greater, broader implications. And I'm wondering, was that intentional, or is that just?
It was intentional because AI makes me nervous. One is it has incredible, incredible potential to do some magnificent, wonderful things for us. But in the wrong hands, it could be every much as detrimental to society as a nuke. So I wanted to present both sides of it. What it would be for a human and an AI to develop a relationship that is beneficial,
Yep.
and also to see what would happen if an AI actually had an emotion or a motivation that was based on horrible things. And it's a theme that goes in every one of them so far, every single book. Because what the plan is, just to let you guys know, every 2 months, if I can, I'm going to have the next book in the series released. A lot of people who've gone through Children of the Directive say that is the best of the series. That one will be the fourth book to come out. It's basically a prequel, and everyone absolutely adores that. And I can't wait for you to get a hold of that. But yeah, the relationship of human and AI was totally intended, completely, because like I said, it makes me nervous, anticipatory, but also very leery, depending on who is using it and for why.
So when you've been doing this stuff, have you researched into the singularity and all of that kind of stuff where, human or machine intelligence eventually catches up and surpasses man, which I think it was supposed to be coming up soon if we haven't already passed that point where, machines can process faster than we can.
I have. It wasn't intended as part of the book, any part of a singularity, as much as it is. I think we are the singularity, and what AI would do in order to be able to process emotions and other things, because our mind. Those of you who know, I'm a retired doctor, and I did a lot of neurology. Um, our minds are designed basically to handle multiple types of input, whether it be emotional, whether it be physical locomotion, manipulation, higher reasoning. And the closer an AI gets to that, and the more we task it with, I think it's going to scale back and become more and more human-like instead of becoming more and more uh, out there and bizarre. The ultimate computer has been, and I think always will be, the human mind, simply because of its ability to. Uh, the tests have been done, and you guys can correct me if I'm wrong. They've done things with Google and different companies where they let AIs go free to see what they do. The imagination that they have doesn't have a good rational grip on a type of morality or consciousness. When we start putting the brakes on those type of things, that's when you're going to see it mellow out and become even more and more human-like, which means it could do good or evil, but it will have controls on it inherently, simply because it just the processing of the things that it has to do. That's my opinion.
See, I think that always the part of Star Trek, the motion picture, which it's one of my favorites. I know a lot of people don't like it, but the where they're actually with V'ger and they're discussing that topic, I love that sequence just because that what is the machine lacking, what are we lacking, and that merger between the two things. Just I don't know. That's what it reminds me of as I was reading through the book. I just you get that real sense of trying. We're trying to figure the universe out, and through the eyes of a machine. It looks it helps us with our perspective.
Right. Two things before we go on. First off, PJ asked me about AI in Orville Nation. We'll save that for your channel. And then those of you who see, there's a gentleman, Chris Fisk, and this is not, it's partly book related. I owe him a lot. When I started putting the Kindle things together, my images weren't matching, and I wasn't able to get a hold of my artist. So I went to him, and he says, "Yeah," and just it was like an afterthought. It was like just shutting the front door to him. It seemed like it was easy. Where I was frustrated and banging my head on the wall trying to get these book covers to match the Kindle diagram, and he just did it for me. And he's a fantastic person. He's one of those people who likes to help other people all the time, and he likes to joke around too. And he's also a creator. In the image that I showed you, and I brought this up, when you see that commercial at the beginning of this, and it goes through the images that I have for the Blood Witch, and there's the one for the nature caller, and there's that tree. He designed that 20 years ago, and I had no idea. I found it, started going through the book, and he says, "Oh yeah, I created that years ago." And I said, "Really?" And he has it on his comic book. He is actually an indie comic writer, and it's phenomenal work. But I am blessed that he allowed me, even though there's no copyright, I still asked for his permission to be able to use that in the book. So I have a bit of him in my books, and I'm greatly thankful to him for all of that. He says it's all good, like it's no big deal, but it is a big deal to me.
I want to read his comment. The Time Prophet. I always knew I would be responsible for someone's explosive time. I've been sitting there chuckling to myself, and I'm like, I gotta say that. That is freaking hilarious.
Oh, he's a great guy. I think I'm going to try in my circle of influence on other channels when he's available, because uh, this is again, this is a release party. Can you hear me? There we
Yeah,
go.
we hear you.
Off again. This is a release party, and I want to selfishly stick with my stuff, but I so want to promote his. He has such beautiful artwork that was done by his artist. His story, basically, it's an origin story for the elves, and it's wonderful. So we'll get there. But anything else on evolution? Thoughts? Otherwise, I know Louise and Mike, you're going to miss out, but I wanted to get into the Blood Witch a little bit too. We'll spend the last half hour with that.
I just wanted to ask you real quick, in evolution, where are we headed in terms of a universe with future novels and installments?
Okay. The next book, if at the end of evolution, you'll notice that there was a big change.
Yep.
Purple's one of her favorite characters is Janice Graves, and she got released from one government agency and started heading another one. They basically became it's kind of like the military police. And Steve Price got promoted huge into a admiral of the Navy, because the Stellar Union has never had a military force in a long time, because they just never needed it, and now they do. So where it is going is the Stellar Union has political agendas that are not compatible with keeping it together. And revolution means just that. They have trouble that they have to resolve. And then the third book, Resolution, is after the events of course, the first two books. They finally have to confront the big bad, what it's all about. The Children of the Directive is a prequel. It talks about where May comes from, who she is, what she actually brings. And I've asked people that have gone through the story, and I say, who's the real hero of this entire series? People who've read Evolution, maybe a couple other books, they say, oh, it's Edric and maybe Janice and a couple other people. Everyone else who's gone through Children of the Directive, they say it's May, and you'll find why. And like I said, that one, it was, I wrote it the first year of COVID, cranked that beast out, put a ton of emotion into it, and I wanted to make sure everybody knew where Edric came from, why he's around, who was involved in his development, and why the Stellar Union was being manipulated to be prepared for much, much bigger things. And there's a lot of people involved, but that's basically May's story. The last, or the second to the last opinion, it's Echoes of Noir, deals with humanity trying to find out what had happened 4 million years ago and to prevent anything happening that could harm them again. And there's a lot of reveals about it's an archaeology story, kind of. There's a huge amount of action in it. But think of it as digging into things that you really shouldn't have. And then I'm doing Doorways of Noir right now, which is basically my effort to explain what life in the Stellar Union would be like. It is all the bells and whistles that I didn't get to before. It's when people have a home, when they live in certain towns, what to expect, what to see, those things that I left mostly to imagination. I'm still going to leave it to imagination, but you're going to know more bits and pieces about the universe through that. So that's what's going on. And all of that should be, except for Doorways of Noir, I'm taking my time with that one, should be out by this time next year. All of them. I hope to.
I love the underground cities and stuff that you did, and the concept of Tillich when you came up with that. I don't know. That was just mine. I remember messaging back and forth with you when I was going through that with the children of the Directive, and I was just like, dude, how did you come up with this idea? Because it was just awesome. I'm like, that is something I have never seen anybody else do in a science fiction. Not that way, not the way that was being done. It was just, it was awesome. I was so impressed.
Well, that all came because of my study of the human body. We're still trying to figure out how the gene code works. What telomere? Oh, we got to take a break. I'm going to introduce you to my number one first love for sci-fi. The things that he has done, I can't believe he's making a second attempt because I screwed up the first time. I owe him a deep apology. This man has done more sci-fi television than anyone on the planet. He is an absolute wonderful guy. Those of you who know him, he's done Stargate Atlantis, Stargate Universe, one of my favorites, Dark Matter. And he's working on a lot of things. And for him to take his busy time out and to be with us, I am so very grateful. This is Joe Malazzi.
Yo, Zo, how's it going?
It's going much, much better now that I see your face, and I can apologize for the last.
No, congrats. I mean, I've been in and out today. I swung by at 2, but I wasn't able to get in. But wanted to pay my respects. So, congrats.
Thank you. I know you've read some.
Yes. And I it's like what I said sort of back then. It just the world building was incredible, and just memorable characters, and just a very engaging storyline. In fact, I'm going to get back and finish it now that I'm just putting a few of these development projects to bed. I'm going to have some free time. But congrats, my friend.
Well, thank you very much. And I've told people that there are some people that have read some of my stuff and said some very kind words, which makes me believe in what I've done. And when you say stuff like that, I actually
you should be very proud.
Thank you very, very much. Again, those of you who don't know, when you look at Stargate Atlantis and all the people who love Stargate Atlantis, that's him.
It's a lot of people. I'm a small part, a cog in a very big machine. But thank you. But please let me go. I mean, I don't have a lot of time, but I wanted to drop by, like I said, to pay my respects. So please don't let me interrupt the stream. Keep going where you guys were at.
Mr. Malazzi, interrupt the stream. I'm dead speechless here. I just want to watch you talk.
That's what I was just thinking. The man that did Stargate is in here.
Yeah, I'm just going to sit here and watch the magic happen. It's an honor to be on the same live stream with you, sir. Huge fan of your work.
The honor is all mine. The honor is all mine. I mean, Adega and through our affable host PJ, with the Orville team, took the time to honor my last show, Dark Matter. So I'm thrilled to sort of do a small thing here to repay the favor. Big fan of Adega and his work. So
your beck and call anytime you need anything. You know that.
I appreciate it.
But this is something that spending with almost a full year of doing these shows with Joe, and PJ wrote it in there. Joe is a supremely humble man. And I think one of the best things about Joe, because he brought on numerous actors and actresses to explain their parts in the show. And we always asked them about what it was like to be in a Joe's production. And I think that one word, if you're going to say anything about it, is family, because the groups that he brings together, everyone gets along. They appreciate, for the most part, everyone just loves being on a show, and every single one of them, and they're not pitching for another job. They say they want to go back and work with Joe.
Yeah, I think that it's a reflection of what all great sci-fi is. As I've often said, whether it's, the rebel faction of Star Wars, or the crew of the Enterprise, or, Team SG-1, or the Atlantis expedition, or, Dark Matter. The great sci-fi is all about family, or found family at its core. Which is something I'd really love to see more of in sci-fi on screen someday.
Well, you've got enough stories, and I'm pitching as much as I can that your brand of sci-fi, which everyone loves, will see the light of day again and again and again and again.
Well, I would hazard to say that my brand of sci-fi, in terms of what I've worked with, is reflected in your writing as well. Like all of the things that I talk about, like sort of action, adventure, world building, great characters, and an underlying sense of humor, which I think, surprisingly, a lot of contemporary sci-fi lacks, but I see in your work reflected as well. And it's the type of sci-fi that I think a lot of fans can connect with.
Wow. One thing that you are superb at, and I've told you this before, and I could never do it, and I leave it to the professionals, is the time episodes that you've done. I can't do that. In my wildest imagination, I could not write something where people are either jumping forward or back in time.
There's so many time travel conceits. You just got to pick one and stick to the rules. One of my pet peeves is basically time travel stories that don't make sense. And I understand it's science fiction, and the fiction part people kind of lean into, but I think everything should at least make sense within the crazy parameters you have created for yourself. So I think you're more than capable, Adega. So I'm looking forward to your next time travel themed novel.
It's not going to happen. When you're done with that, though, I want you to read The Reach that I did. It's spoiler alert. Those of you who don't want to hear it, it's kind of like a superhero origin story, love story thing. And people who've loved it or heard it just absolutely love it. But I'm going to allow them, if they wanted, to ask you a couple questions real quick, and then I wanted to move on because I wanted to do the Blood Witch, which you haven't had any experience with.
Yes,
my writing.
I've heard a lot about.
Okay. Anyone want to ask this? I can't say enough about Joe. If there is a person in fandom that is more approachable, I don't know, because he loves the fans. But anyway, anyone have anything for him? This is your chance.
Okay, now that I've
not
connected,
necessary, because it can be all you.
now that I've connected my oxygen tank and I'm breathing again. Holy moly! I get to ask you a question. One of the things that I have found as I have watched the Stargate episodes over the years, I wanted to. How do you, as a showrunner, keep everything interesting all the time? Because to me, I think one of the things about the Stargate community, especially the Atlantis community, the people that I've met, because they sucked me in. I was not an original fan when they originally came out, but am now a huge fan. My question is that how are you able, from a storytelling staff, be able to be in the stories as they're being written and executed, yet also it seems to me that you're still a fan of the work, because I think the fans love it so much, and so it's almost you're inside the universe and outside the universe watching it happen. And I think a lot of times, so many as I've gotten to interact with a lot of people that are inside Hollywood, sometimes they get wrapped up in their own world, in their own universe, and the fans get forgotten about. Yet you have maintained, with all of your work and your team, I know it's not just you, your team, you've always been able to give the fans more of what they want, when they want it, and how they want it. How do you do that? How is that a skill? Is that an instinct? How do you even develop that ability to execute that?
I think a lot of it really comes down to the fact that on Stargate, we were all sci-fi fans. And that makes a huge difference, I think. Because nowadays, I think, especially in Hollywood, the thinking is to bring in non-sci-fi people onto sci-fi productions, which is not like a bad thing. You just end up with a different type of show. And after a while, you kind of exclude sci-fi, fans from writing sci-fi. You don't really end up with the type of sci-fi that I think a lot of fandom is really passionate about. So being a sci-fi fan is like one of the big givens there. Also, I mean, to be honest with you, I think what just keeps it interesting all the time are the characters. Like I often said, people tune in for the hook, but they stay for the characters. We have some great characters on Atlantis, for instance. And part of it is obviously the writing, but part of it is also who you cast. And over time, the actors bring those characters to life, and you as a writer watch those characters come to life, and you kind of feed off those performances. So it's kind of a very symbiotic professional relationship. And then the fans react, and they kind of connect to the characters. And I keep on going back to this theme of family, and very much, the Atlantis family is almost like a second family to viewers in a way. And as much as people found Rodney annoying, they also loved him.
I love Rodney. I loved him when he was on Stargate SG-1, and then when he came to Atlantis, I was just like, "Oh, this is awesome!"
Yeah, he was kind of annoying on SG-1.
Yeah,
and on Atlantis, he was actually in the last character cast, because originally Rodney was not supposed to be on Atlantis. It was actually another character, Dr. Benjamin something or other. And we were having a hard time casting the character. And I think we were like 2 weeks away from shooting. And we're like, what are we going to do? And Rob Cooper suggested, why don't we bring McKay onto Atlantis? And I was like, McKay? He's like that little weasel. He's an asshole. Why would we want to bring him on board? And we're like, well, look, we're out of choices. So, as much, I love David Hewlett is a terrific actor, but the character was a pain in the ass. But over time, we didn't really change the character. We just got to know him better. It was sort of like the Woolsey character played by Bob Picardo, who was kind of in the same way, kind of this pencil-pushing bureaucrat when we first introduced him in SG-1. And then when he became the commander of the Atlantis expedition, we got to know him a little better. And through humor, he kind of humanized him. And like Rodney, the audiences fell in love with him. And I love those type of characters, the characters that you kind of turn around over the course of episodes, or if not seasons.
well, his interactions with Amanda Tapping, that back and forth between them just really, it really helped to humanize him and just take him from a male chauvinist pig to kind of somebody who could respect her for, but that interaction between those two always made me
and
laugh.
again, it comes back to the performances too. Amanda and David are just phenomenal actors.
So my question is the one I'm sure that you always get a lot, but will we see Atlantis ever come back again? Because when that ended, I was irritated.
Yeah,
I'm sure you guys were too. I was just like,
to be honest, I've been irritated. There's no series ending that has not irritated me in terms of the shows I've worked on. It's really at this point in Amazon's hands. I think they have Brad's script for a fourth season, for a fourth series, and if it's Brad at the reins, which ideally it will be, because I kind of find it, who knows what will happen. Amazon can just bring in a whole new team and wipe the slate clean. But the fandom, Stargate fandom is still out there. So I think the wisest thing to do is either give Brad direction, if they want changes to the script, and let him and greenlight that fourth series under Brad, because Brad would set it in the same Stargate universe, and it would be a new team, so it would be a show for new viewers, but at the same time, it would allow him to bring in elements from past shows. Like, so we'll find out what happens to Destiny. We'll find out what happens to Atlantis. We'll check in with the SG-1 characters. Having Brad at the helm of a new series would be the best of both worlds. He's written a pilot. It's with Amazon. They just have to decide what they want to do next. And sadly, I have no idea what their thinking is on that.
Did you feel a change between the universe, SG or Stargate universe felt like had a different feel to it than the other SG shows, and it always kind of put me off just a little bit. But I was so desperate to like it.
Yeah, I totally get it, because SG-1 and Atlantis had a very different tone, kind of a fun, kind of action adventure comedic tone, where the SGU was more of a, kind of a darker slow burn. I think, I mean, I understand why sort of fans didn't get on board, because they were expecting more in the vein of sort of the tone, the type of show they were used to at the time. But if you take Stargate universe, if you consider it apart from the other two, the two shows that preceded it, it's an excellent show. It's actually my wife's favorite, Stargate, which is kind of funny. It's a different show, admittedly.
Well, that's funny. I liked it a lot
too, and I thought the ending, if you had to end it, that was probably one of the most bittersweet, combined with whoever your music person was.
Yeah, that was the late Joel Goldsmith. Yeah, he came. That final sequence. I remember my writing partner, former writing partner, Paul, and I were in the editing room, and we were just going to end the episode as it was, like everybody in the stasis pod. And we'd been hearing kind of rumblings that maybe it was going to be our last season, but we'd also heard that we would get a third and final season. And Brad and Paul was like, what we should do to end this episode, just in case it's the end. The pilot opened with that beautiful shot of camera kind of like going down through the various levels as the Destiny lights up, all the lights come on, the ship is coming alive. He says, just roll that in reverse. So instead of like going up or going down, we're doing the reverse. Instead of the lights going on, the lights are going off. And it's a perfect visual bookend to the series. And then that last shot of the Destiny jumping into FTL and leaving us behind, just gets me every time. And the score by Joel Goldsmith, he just came up with, I think, one of his best pieces for the ending of that series. And
if you don't know it, I can give you a link to it later. That it makes a grown man want to cry.
It was beautiful. But like I said, I don't have much time, so I wanted to turn it over to you, Adega, and tell me about Bloodwood.
There's only two other people in here, Purple and Speaker, that know about
hey guys.
Blood Witch, since it wasn't released. And I'll give you a background about it. I wrote it. I sent a pitch out to a publishing company. They wanted it. And another publishing company saw what it was and stole me away from them because they had a better business model, but they were a new company. I wanted to support them. I wanted to use, because their model would be a better vehicle for people who had an authentic voice instead of the formulaic voice. And you know what I mean by that. The modern formula where you have to have inclusive and this and that and the other. And so I went with them. And in the process, I found out that they hired the wrong editors. The people who ran the company, love them to death, wonderful people. But the editors were ones who wanted to put in political agenda to tear your story apart and rebuild it into something that was garbage. So it never did get published because of COVID, lost hard drives, a few different other things. But I had put it on my YouTube channel, and Purple actually got a copy of it, and she's and Speaker got mad at me when it ended because, speaking of endings, he was not happy with the way it ended.
I was like, what? You can't stop it there.
Right there with your speaker. Yes.
It was so good. I'm just like, what? No, there's gotta like he's got to be doing more. And then he's like, nope, that's it. I'm like, you suck.
So this is a dark fantasy. It's a high fantasy, but it doesn't have dwarves and elves and all those other things. It's just humans and some new creatures that are out of my creation. Purple. Was it you who asked about orang?
Yes. I was trying to picture the Rang in my mind because I would love to attempt to sculpt it, and just these characters that you bring to life, and the Vole character as well was wonderful.
Okay. A ring, basically, in this universe, it's set. It starts in medieval, but I have a 4,000-year plan, and it eventually will get into a kind of a 50s feel for a urban fantasy at the end of the story. But there are creatures in it that have extremely long lives. There are ones that have really bizarre short lives. A rang is something that lives a very, very long time. And I'm not going to ever tell how long in my head they live, but you'll keep seeing this character popping up here and there. Basically, in the book, I described it a mix, or I mentioned it something between a weasel and a cat. Very, very intelligent, equal to almost like a human. They don't use names because they think names are a waste of time. If you cannot be good to somebody without having a name pinned to them, what's the point? And they are attracted to magic. So when magic it shows up every 200 years. When it's there, they come just to see. To sightsee. And so this one rang, who eventually are one of our characters, gives it a name of Grin because it's always wanted to be petted by her. Think of it, and you might even throw in a little bit of a red panda, kind of a mix between those three. And they have an ability besides living long, is to where they could hide even out in the open. It's almost like an innate camouflage, where you may look at them, but you wouldn't even know they were there until they wanted to let you know. They cannot speak unless magic's involved, where you can start to communicate with them. This one actually was enchanted long before. Those of you who went through the Organza witches will know that the one that's in the story can communicate on a limited basis. When magic turns it on, then you're free to be able to communicate with him. And like I said, he's very intelligent. He's been keeping record of everything for years and years and years. A vole, I wanted something like a forest lord. They live longer than humans, but not as long as a rang. And they normally, you would see them, they would be like a Herman Munster type thing. They would look like a human, quiet, going about their business. And their way of living is based on emotion. They don't feed off of anything except for emotion. In order for them to thrive, there has to be peace. It has to be calm. That's why they call the forest lords, where it's most peaceful and calm. There are creatures in the forest that try and disturb that, and they are so powerful that they common out. They don't want to eliminate species like the Kragan, which are kind of like a venomous wolf. Very, very intelligent as well. They are pack hunters and very, very good at it. And they will get out of hand unless the vole goes and culls their herd periodically to make sure they stay in place. But they can do something where they will attach to someone that they know is going to have really, really good feelings throughout their life. And when they bond with them, they try and stay around them and try and make them happy, because it's basically like a food to them. As long as that person's happy, they feel well and develop. Otherwise, they slowly die. But they can kind of shapeshift into something that is quite horrific, much taller, much more girth. They can physically jump meters at a time, and one swipe and they can behead people with just their limbs. They're very, very powerful. I have a Corbin that is in there. Corbins are basically a kind of a cross between an owl and a bear. They're small. They can fly when they're young, not when they get older, and they're mischievous. Think of raccoons. If there's something untied down, they're going to come and get it. They're pests. They're, like I said, they're kind of smart. So if they see a human camp, they're going to wait till night and go in and start stealing their fruits and berries and different things. Shiny things, they'll collect shiny things. People hate them. Everybody hates them. There are some ones that I'm going to be writing about soon. I mentioned them in the Oganza Witches. There's the Banes and the High Banes. They're basically related. They're more of an energy type creature. The High Banes live a very, very long time. There's a whole lore to them that I'm not going to get into yet. I don't have everything quite pinned down. But they are, think of a beautiful plant that can move around. It's similar to that. They almost have human features, almost. I'm going to get in the backstory. My dragons are different, but there are dragons in it. They are different. So, and they're all going to be fleshed out. I'm trying to think of something. The Abans, I'm still working on them. I have an idea in my head, but those are different creatures. And the Rang, like I said, it's very, very long-lived, very intelligent, and they just love to watch magic happen. And they have to wait every 200 years for someone to be born at the precise moment to be able to be imbued with magic. And both of you know that the story isn't necessarily about magic users. It's about the Blood Witch family.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Yes. And
yeah, when you first get to see the Blood Witch, sorry, Purple, I interrupted you. Go ahead.
No, please carry on.
Just when you finally get to see what the Blood Witch actually is, that's one of my favorite parts, because I wasn't expecting it. It just kind of come out of no, and I'm just like, holy crap, that is awesome. I mean, it's just, you have that visceral reaction that just, you get the tingles and you're just excited for this, what's happened, because you didn't see it coming. Despite all of the, kind of, I mean, once it happens, you kind of look back and go, oh yeah, okay. But I mean, you don't see it till it's there. And I mean, that's really, a credit to you for the fact that you held that in reserve and then just boom. and hopefully
it wasn't
a huge impact.
I tried to leave little seeds along the way to where you could see it coming.
Yeah, but like I said, if once it happens, you look back and you go, yeah, I should have, but you don't. And that, like I said, it is just a credit to how you wrote that. It was a fantastic part of that book. The whole thing's great, but I loved that part.
It was, absolutely. And the one thing that I was really impressed with was the switch from the sci-fi, which we know you for, to the fantasy setting, but the violence that you write into this book as well, right from the get-go. It gets you by the throat and drags you in.
Yeah. There's no slow burn here. It's more of an explosion in your face.
I have to bring this back to Joe because I find that funny. One time I sat my wife down. I said, "You got to watch the show. This is Dark Matter." She goes, "Oh, sci-fi show, cool." And it happened to be one of the episodes, and I don't remember which one. But within the first 10 minutes of her sitting down there, the crew of the Raza had wiped out a dozen people, or a half a dozen, and she's going, "This thing's bloody. I don't want to." But some people who read the prologue to the Blood Witch, it's actually history of something really terrible that had happened, and it's, some call it a unreliable narrator, and I've seen it in other books where you're given a taste of something that's going to be explained of why this happened, and it's towards the middle of the book when you actually see, oh, this is who this is, and then the Oganza Witches explains why that person did what they did. Basically, what a Blood Witch is, and I'm going to give you the brief overview for whoever's listening who don't, without giving too many spoilers. There is a family of Trodaire, and they, somewhere along the line, they go into hiding because of difficulties, and change their name to Troder, which I know it isn't that much of a difference, but in their world it did, Troder. And they go by the last name of who was most reputable in the family, not by the last name of who the father was. So if you have a mother who was seriously accomplished, you take on her name because you want to be associated with that. Well, the Troder have this forgotten ability. The only thing they remember is if they touch blood of another living person, they have to be alive, that blood turns to gold. They learn how to hide the ability. They train to work in military camps as medics so they can stitch people up. They're brilliant surgeons, but they're also very sly with a sleight of hand, making themselves absolutely wealthy. And they share it with people for the most part. Most of them are very, very generous. People know them as being very kind, very helpful, and they always feed the poor, take care of the wounded, give money to the poor. You know, it's that type of thing. But somewhere along the line, our lead character, Veronica, starts discovering that's not it. There is a huge secret to this family, and she is a really, really beautiful girl, and finds herself in, you know, you're in wartime, in medieval times, that you're usually a target from some very despicable people. And she gets targeted a couple of times and slowly starts to find out until one point where, boom, finds out the family secret. And it's like Speaker said, it's, if you can hear me, great.
Yeah, I can hear you, but your video's frozen.
Your internet feed froze.
It does that.
There he is.
Said if you take over, Mike.
You're back.
Yeah, thank you. But when it turns on, it isn't a surprise, and then she becomes much more the lead character than the magic user, and it comes down to some really, really life and death situations for the whole world. You guys see the commercial. There's the 3 forms of magic that appear every 3 or 200 years. You have to be born at the exact moment when a pulsar hits the world, and those who are born right at that moment, their first light is from that pulsar, they get magic. And it's based on personality. Most people in the world that you know, almost everyone you know, will be a nature caller. They can, you know, control simple things like lightning. I know it's not simple. Fires, make wind, those type of things. But there is a tendency for really evil people, once they get a taste of that, to turn horrifically evil. And they have to be horrifically evil in order to fuel their magic, in order to become stronger. And they have what's called a mage sleep. You know, there's limitations to it. But so those are the 2 main, and the Deathwind is the most powerful of all 3 of them. The healer mage are very, very rare. I doubt any of you have ever, and Mother Teresa would be one, someone who would gladly give their life for another person in the quiet moment where no one would know, or do it for a community, or give everything away, walk away with nothing, and be absolutely happy about it and not looking for reward. Very, very rare. And in the whole story so far, there wasn't any in the Blood Witch, and there's one in the Oganza Witches. And if you go through that, when it comes out, you'll see that, yeah, they really are something special. But the Deathwind is the master. And it comes down to where a Blood Witch and a mage have to show what they're made of, a nature caller mage. So I've done a lot of talking. Purple, tell me what you think of the story.
Wait, before you do, I'm gonna have to bow out, sadly. But Adega, this is all brilliant. I actually look forward to checking it out, hopefully sooner than later. The rest of you, it was a pleasure meeting you guys. Hope to do it again and spend a little more time here next time.
Thank you. I'm going to hold you to that.
Yes, absolutely. Please give me the invite if I can. If I can.
Nope.
That's the wrong button.
Did you just kick out Joe Malazzi? Who does that?
I don't know. I've gone out of StreamYards and everything. It may have been a battery. Who knows? But he's such a wonderful guy.
If I'd known he was going to hear, I would have say, "Where's that super chat button?"
I don't have one of those. No, go ahead, Purple. What'd you think? And if Mike or Luis, if you had questions about this story, please feel free.
Yes, absolutely. When you first sent this, I was blown away by it. One, because I love fantasy. It got me very excited too. I love the horror genre. That got me even more excited when I read the prologue. I thought this is incredible. But it's not until you meet our main protagonist that you really get into the book. And it is all about, as you say, magic. But even more than that, it is about people finding out who they are, what their destiny is. One is willing to embrace their destiny. The other is pretty much dead set on not embracing it, at least in the beginning. They don't really want anything to do with what they're predestined to do. And I love that they learn as the book goes on to grow and they come together. And it really is a fantastic study in what it means to be human.
Thank you. Speaker, overall thoughts?
I loved it. Like I said, I was in the truck and you were putting these out, and I just started at the beginning and went clear through. And I remember as each one would get done, I couldn't wait to comment. I was just like, "This is awesome, keep going," and just really excited. It really was just a great book. The characters just jump right out at you. And you're gonna it's kind of just like evolution in that way where you feel like you're getting exposed to things that you haven't seen before, you haven't heard before, and I love that. I love the fact that you're really going for that original, find a different way of looking at things, doing something that hasn't been done 1,000 times, and that's getting harder and harder to do. I think in today, I mean, there's a lot of stories that just been done to death, and Hollywood has become experts on doing that. So to get to be a part of listening to something original like this was fantastic. The worst thing is I got done, and I think a few days later you had to pull it down off of YouTube. So I only got to ever listen to it one time. So that's why I'm so excited for this, because I'm finally going to get to go through it again. And relive all that all over again, because it's probably been a year or more since you pulled it down off YouTube.
I put it down before COVID. It's
Okay,
funny how
yeah.
we measure our times now, before and after COVID.
With an AD and BC kind of thing, but I mean, it's but it was, I say, the intricacy of the characters, you draw the world, in my end, at the beginning, map, which kind of gives you an idea of the feel for. It's just, yeah. I predict the Death Wind. I thought that was fantastic. The just the name alone, inspires that kind of terror stuff. You really get that feel for just how dark that somebody has to go to be Deathwind. And yeah, just like I said, if you have not read this and listening to this stream at any point in now or in the future, go get this book. You will not be sorry that you did.
Kindle's still working on the details. It was supposed to be released already, but I don't know. Like I mentioned other times, I don't know if there's a font issue. We're still working it out. I know the images all fit. I have the maps in the center of the book. Thanks to Purple, she gave me some hints on what to do. So I have the overall map, and then it's broken into pieces so you get a little bit of close-up, where things are in the world. But hopefully sometime this week it'll be out. Otherwise, we're going to have to rework it and get it out. But it'll be soon. It's got to get in your hands. Too many people want it in their hands, and I'm happy to share with people new things that haven't been tainted by political agenda. Things that will take you into a world that actually remove you from your own world for a little while.
Absolutely, and this book really does. I cannot wait to get a physical copy. So thank you so much for letting us read it.
Yes.
No problem. Final thoughts, anybody, about anything? Any questions for me?
I found it very interesting that if I were to rewind this stream, and we were earlier about an hour and a half ago when we were talking about your writing style, that with Speaker for the Dead, someone's got their mic too close to their lips. I think I keep hearing breathing, but let me start over again. Speaker for the Dead, when he was talking about your writing style in Blood Witch, which I haven't read yet, is that the way he described your writing style was very similar to what everyone on the panel said about your writing style about an hour and a half ago in Evolution. So that means that your stylistic abilities carry through, and that's really exciting, because the thing about being a great author is that you want to read more of their work. That's why when you asked me a little while ago about Evolution, I finished it and I'm like, okay, what's next? Where do we go next? Because in my mind, the way that you've laid this book out, having finished, having now read it twice, I now expect that there should be 2, 3, 4, 5 other installments. I mean,
there is.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, you're gonna know the whole universe. Like I
Wait
said,
till you get to Children of the Directive.
yeah, everyone says that. I'm happy that I did that. That was fun. Luis, I muted you for a second on and off. There's some kind of noise, but any thoughts from you? We've gone in directions where I know you weren't able to contribute very much, but anything you'd like to share?
No, I just really want to read it now. So, I didn't read it quick enough.
Because I've seen you on Goodreads. You read all kinds of stuff. What's your favorite?
Fantasy and sci-fi are probably my favorite. If I'm reading other stuff, it's probably a bit of escapism. Might be time constraints, but I like to sit down and read sci-fi and fantasy properly.
Okay, cool. Someone was writing Children of the Directive and you brought it up. In that upper corner there, the icon that I have, that is the symbol of the directive. If I had it enlarged, you'd be able to read the words on it where it says their motto is excellence, perfection, and domination. They are quite a horrible group, but we get into Children of the Directive on that. So it'll come out. You guys will see it all. If there's no final thoughts, anything you guys want to add at the last moment? I've kept you here for a long time, and I'm starting to feel it. So, anything you got for us? Anything you want to share about your own stuff?
I just wanted to say thank you, not only for letting us and trusting us with your work, but just sharing it with us as a community. We need more voices like yours, Adega, so thank you for bringing these worlds to us.
Yeah, ditto. Absolutely.
Great.
Very happy to do it.
Me too, and thanks for releasing it on Amazon, the hardback, which I purchased 2, one for me and my son. So thank you.
Awesome. Well, hardback is only going to last a couple months. Once Revolution comes out, that's book 2, it's switching to paperback, and it will have something unique for it. Each version, I don't want people to be left out and not have something special. So I've got some ideas what's going to be in it, but we'll see. Anyway, everyone who's been in chat, for Joe who dropped out unexpectedly, my hands were not on the controls. It wasn't my fault.
Right. You know who did it?
Let me help you.
It was the AI.
There we go. We'll blame the AI.
Adega Thana snapped him out. Yeah.
I didn't touch the thing. Thank you so much for being here. I appreciate it. There's going to be probably little snippets and pieces that are going to be pulled out, and I'm going to use your words to sell my stories. Thank you, everyone, for being here. I don't have any outro. I'm new at this, so have a good evening.